Today we went from being in Silver City, New Mexico. We went deep in the Gila National Forest. We actually drove about 30 or 40 miles up winding roads up into the National Forest, and we went to the Gila Cliffs dwellings. And when we got up there, it was a half-mile hike to be able to get up to where the cliff dwellings were at. And the hike was an awesome hike. It was really cold that morning. We had seen lows in 17 driving up there, and it was in the upper 20s when we got there. You can see the icicles. You get a glimpse of a cave that's up there in the cliff. And then the hike was really fun. There was snow and ice in certain places. It was cold down at the bottom, and then the higher we hiked up, the warmer it got. And there were places along the way that you could, get some good shots of the cliff dwellings. We had a good time looking at the cactus plants. And it didn't take that long to get up there, maybe 30 minutes to get up there. But you can see you're really in the middle of nowhere. And you can see how big those things are by just seeing the little specks over there of people. And we finally made it around to where the cliff dwellings were at. And sure enough, it is a cliff. If you fall off, you're not having a good day. You can see some of the old foundations there in the first cave. And then here's kind of the pathway leading up to the first part of the dwellings. And there is a ton of dwellings up there. They go on and on for quite some ways. And you can see the intricacy they have with the walls and the doors and the windows. It's pretty amazing.
They probably stay year-round. Some people guess they might have used them seasonally. This seems to be an absolutely ideal place to be here year-round because in the winter you have the beautiful sun exactly from the south shining in, and then in the summer the sun is back here, so you have this natural air conditioning. And they have the year-round water source, so the creek that you walked along is a spring-fed creek, so it's pure.
So this is the biggest room in the cave, and the black is the soot from the fire. These Indians lived here 700 years ago, which is amazing. So you can see here how big these rooms were, or these houses were. Some of them are actually 2 stories. They would have had thatched roofs over top of them. You can see some of the wood remnants still sticking out from where the wooden beams would have been there for the roof. So obviously the roof's not still in place today, but you can get a pretty good idea of what it looked like. They all had windows and small doors, and they were all right on the edge of the cliff. And it was pretty interesting walking right there. Like I said, you had to be careful. The view was amazing. And they had these little ladders so you could kind of climb up and look over the wall into the individual houses. And some of these things were all interconnected, so they would stretch on for quite a long ways. And, they would have little doors that interconnected them to the next house. And supposedly these Indians, they believe, lived here for around 100 years, and they believe they lived there permanently, so it wasn't like a nomadic thing. And here's an example of some of these that stretch on. There's a little door there that leads to another house. And it was just fascinating to spend time hiking around in their houses and being able to look out and see what they would have seen all those years ago. And you can tell, it's a lot of houses there. And then one of the highlights was at the end, they had a pretty tall ladder there that everybody got to climb down. And so we all had fun taking turns climbing down, and then you can again kind of get an image or picture what it would have been like for the Indians to come up and down there. And think about all the little kids that would have been in the village there and run along that cliff and climbing up and down ladders. It's definitely an interesting way of life that they had back then. And the ladder was kind of big and clunky, but we had a real good time. And then after we had went through all of the houses, we came down the ladder, so we eventually would work our way back in front of them. And there were lots of trails that went on down past them, and you can see Jenny way up there at the top of that trail. And again, it was some steep terrain. So Then we started our hike back out and got to walk back in front of all the houses that we had just went inside of, and it stretched on for quite a while. Then we were back on the road again, and we spent quite a bit of time coming out of the middle of nowhere again, and finally got down into more of New Mexico, which you'd expect, the desert land. And then we've eventually made our way over to Carlsbad, and looking forward to a good day tomorrow. But we had an absolutely great time at the cliffs.